All right, everyone, welcome back. I hope you had a nice coffee break and a good chance to network. I certainly did. Whoever makes the coffee around here has done a fantastic job. But let's jump into our next panel and allow everyone else to join us as they come back in. But in this panel, we really want to focus on technology as a solution. So creating a digital blueprint. How do we take these amazing technologies and address key issues and provide these solutions for us? Now, let me briefly introduce our fantastic panel. First, we have Abdulwahid Janahi, Chief Executive at The Benefit Company. Next, I'd like to introduce Samar Faruqi, Regional Head of Consumer Industries at SAP. And last, but definitely not least, Remo Abodondalo, Senior Vice President MENA at Checkout. Please join me in welcoming the three gentlemen to the stage. Right, Remo, let's jump in. Technology as a solution. I want to start, Remo, if I can, thinking about just very broadly, what are some of the most exciting technologies, before we get into the solutions, what are some of the most exciting technologies that you see in your line of work, that you're most excited about when we think about this digital transition?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me here. Definitely lots of interesting technologies, but if I need to pick up a couple of trends, I'd like to mention some of the interesting findings that we as Checkout.com, as a global online payment service provider, hence deeply involved in technology, we've been seeing three different trends in this Middle East Digital Transformation Report we recently published. Number one, we saw that the e-commerce opportunity is growing dramatically in this part of the world. We see almost 50% growth compared to last year. The second biggest trend we see is the increase of adoption of online payments. So right. People continue to buy online. So they're using their own technology, mobile phone, computer to purchase more and more goods and service online, but they pay more online with more digital payment solution, which can be Apple Pay in Saudi Arabia, Benefit Pay in Bahrain, buy now, pay later companies such as Tamara. Definitely something that is growing dramatically. Number three, we also see a significant amount of increase of opportunity in cross borders, which means a lot of companies from this part of the world, they keep expanding outside, and the region also keep attracting more investment. And that's definitely because, we in the region, I think we embrace technology much faster than many other parts of the world.
And Remo, it's probably a simple question with a simple answer, but COVID just accelerated these things from your perspective, all these transitions, e-commerce, online spending. I imagine COVID-19 just accelerated this by 5 or 10 years.
That's for sure. And actually, quoting some of the merchants that we work with, we're proud to be the payment service provider of companies such as Talabat, Deliveroo, Careem. And obviously, they are telling us that during COVID, payment online was not convenience, but was a necessity. So definitely the growth has been accelerated. But what is interesting, and what the report is showing us right now in 2021, that is continue to grow much faster. So obviously, COVID just accelerated the growth that was already there.
Absolutely. So Mark, can I bring you, before we get to the solutions and technology solution, just some of the technologies that you're most excited about?
Yeah, no, thank you, and a real pleasure to be with everyone today. I think technology, as you mentioned already, is accelerating so rapidly. But where there's major trends, I think, is in the backbone. Right? Not only cloud-based technology, of course, but it's about digital supply chain. And for my specialism in consumer industries, it is about making sure that we can put the right products in the hands of consumers. But as everyone recognizes, that is a long global supply chain. So technology is accelerating in this domain very much to drive improvements in manufacturing, dealing with the scarcity that we've seen arising as a result of the pandemic, and ensuring there's efficiency in every stage of the process, not only in manufacturing, but shipping, logistics, receiving, all the way through to commerce. And so efficiency across all of these areas is accelerating, and the technology to support that, from AI to machine learning to smart intelligence, the intelligent enterprise, is the emergent technology that we as SAP, for example, are driving towards and are very excited about to make a huge difference in the lives of our customers and indeed the world economy.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll definitely come back to some of those examples very, very soon. Abdul Wahid, before we get into some case studies and really get into the specifics of this, What technologies are you excited about? Should we be thinking about?
We are in technology, and we are. First of all, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for
hosting
me here. Thank you very much. I mean, just to add to my colleagues, I think there are a number of them now. The technology is shaping our future, and to be specific, I mean, from my perspective, I'm thinking of at least now 3 type of technologies. I mean, one of them is the open banking. The open banking, for example, it allows even non-banks, to give their customers the access information of their financial statement. The other one is the one I'm thinking of is the digital onboarding and digital ID through the AKYC platform. So in order to have this as well, these kind of transactions should be endorsed. Now, how it's endorsed? Then it has to be provided by a third trusted party, okay, where they provide the PKI and CA certificate authority, endorsing even the digital signature, digital in terms of signatures, as well as any statement, any smart contracts, or any legal documents. After all, we hear that a lot about the digital currency. And now I think this is something that's happening, although we have a different argument on this. But we can see even in this region, a number of the central banks, they are thinking of implementing the advantages of the CBDC, which is the central bank digital currency. So I think that's, to be more specific, this is something that I believe is going to shape, our life and our future in terms of the financial transactions.
Well, let's go there now, Abdul Wahid. I mean, as an economist, I was trained on exchange rates and currencies, Australian dollar, US dollar, et cetera, so British pound, et cetera. Let's just kind of quickly ask you about the difference between, crypto versus a central bank digital currency. I mean, they're both using these amazing new technologies that we have, but how should we be thinking about the difference between a Bitcoin, for example, versus a central bank digital currency? Are there differences? How should we be thinking about these 2 different types of digital currencies?
This is a hot topic. It's going on now in terms of the Bitcoin and whether it is a real life or is not a real. But still, it is there. It is existing now, and that's why, at least from the central bank point of view, to start with, you need to have some sort of legislations and regulations in order to regulate this kind of transactions. But it is something that, as I know, Bitcoin is there, and people are becoming a millionaire, and they can cash it, and they can buy gold. But some people, they argue that, where is it going? Is it real? Well, to me, I think it's happening now. It's going. Yeah.
It's a fascinating point. We could talk about that maybe another day, but is it real? That's a great question. I mean, I personally think that the central bank digital currencies will also catch up, will also come. But Abdul Wahid, let's talk about more other recent case studies that you see here in the Middle East in your experience. Some case studies that really highlight organizations using technology as a solution.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. If I may, I give you our experience. I like to speak about numbers and figures.
Great.
Okay, so in Bahrain, for example, we have introduced the electronic fund transfer system, and that is some sort of an ACH. And it consists of 3 components, Fawri Plus, Fawri, and Fawatir. Now, the Fawri Plus, it is an instant transfer and instant payment. I'll just give you a figure for 21. The amount in terms of the value what's being transacted on just Fawri Plus is around almost $11 billion. So that shows you there's a huge usage and a huge transfer, or people, moving towards the cashless society. The same thing with Fawri. Fawri is for the bigger ticket. Also, we have around 40 billion Bahraini dinar that's been transacted. And the last one, or the third one, it is the Fawatir, which is the same as the electronic bill payment presentment. It's around 2 billion Bahraini dinar. So you can see, although Bahrain is small, but the amount of the transaction is huge. So nowadays the size, it doesn't matter. Okay, the second one, it is the digital AKYC. Now, the digital AKYC, which is for the onboard, for the customer onboarding, I think this is a good example where you mentioned earlier, or you've been talking in the earliest panel about the private sector and the public sector. And this is a good example where the public sector, along with the private sector, they work together in order to make a success. Now, this is why in Bahrain, we managed to make it success. Why? Because we have the Economic Development Board, the Central Bank, the Information Government Authority, and benefits. So it's a mix of private and public sector that makes it happen. Although in some other countries in Asia, they tried the AKYC, but it didn't fly. But for us, thanks God, it is working and it is live, and it's based on the published APIs. The third one, which is I think everybody in Bahrain, they are, at least as far as I know, they are happy, is the Benefit Pay. It's a mobile app where it's connected to the customer's lifestyle. The people, they pay online, they do transfer, they even pay their bills, and they also pay their petrol, when they go to the gas station. They just sitting in the car and they just do it seamlessly. Other than that, as use cases, we launched the e-check. It's one of a kind. It's something that is considered, it is a digital legal document, which is a continuation of the paper check, as well as also introduced, let's say, the e-remittance on the Benefit Pay, which is the mobile app as well. So we are moving toward the digitalization, and we are following our national priorities, which is the cashless society and the digital society, as well as sustainable innovation.
Interesting. Thank you, Abdulhamid. Remo, can I bring you back in? Just from your perspective, your line of work, your experience, some case studies, some really good examples of people using technology as a solution.
We spoke about crypto, we spoke about open banking, so perhaps I will just add another area, which is buy now, pay later, that we see in the payment space. So buy now, pay later allows, it's a payment method which allows consumers to buy online today and pay tomorrow.
Right.
Essentially up to 4 installments. And we've been seeing a tremendous growth in Middle East on this new form of payment. Buy now, pay later has been a payment method which has been super famous in Europe, in Australia, in the US since many years. But the adoption in Middle East has been among the fastest one in the world. Tamara, which is a homegrown company in Saudi Arabia, expanding quickly to the rest of the region. So a growth like no others in other parts of the world. And also what we see in the report I was mentioning before, that when we did the report last year, less than 2% of the people, they were actually using buy now, pay later, 25% this year. And in the last 2 months, we saw this number going almost to 45%. So essentially, on one hand, it's an exciting technology, but on the other hand, I think it's also adopting very, very quickly in this part of the world, because again, the region is embracing new technologies, new payment methods very, very quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you, Remo. Simon, I'd love to give you a chance to share sort of any case studies, examples from your experience in the consumer space about how people have applied technology as a solution.
Yeah, sure. So one example I'd like to share in the region here is the work that SAP has done with Aldara, which is an important agro business here in the UAE. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I think it's okay, yeah.
Yep. So one of the major challenges that consumer companies have, for example, is managing the global supply chain. And so as I mentioned earlier, and my colleagues have talked about, managing the payments and linkages all the way through is crucial. And increasingly today, given scarcity of resources and finding suppliers in a timely basis is of major concern. And all the nations in the region and beyond are looking at challenges such as food security and being able to secure the best sources of supply. Now, as SAP, we worked with companies like Aldara here in the UAE to equip them with the right procurement technology. So how can you intelligently procure what you need for your business, whether that's agricultural imports, whether that's manufacturing imports? What's happened, of course, is that given the global scarcity and the strains that supply chains have been under, any business needs to respond in an agile fashion quickly to meet the needs of their business and their customers. So at SAP, we've helped companies like Aldara to find the right procurement solutions, to be able to rapidly identify alternative sources. So in the last 12, 18 months, managing, for example, food supply has been a major concern because of restrictions in shipping you're all aware of, the cutback in manufacturing or production happening around the world. How do you find alternative supplies rapidly? So with SAP's technology built on the intelligent enterprise, using artificial intelligence, we can very quickly enable organizations to find alternative suppliers. And then you can connect supply with demand rapidly, and the benefit of that to your organization is substantial savings in cost, creating new relationships, and effectively working as an ecosystem. And this is a very important part of the new economy that's emerging. We can only compete as organizations as well as our ecosystem that is made up of our suppliers, of our partners, of our regulators. So by smartly connecting them, eliminating friction points and finding quicker and smoother ways to acquire a product and import that, you can save substantial cost, improve margin, and deliver ultimately to your customer, even in times of constrained supply. So in the region, we work with dozens of organizations to implement this type of technology that ultimately delivers the promise to your customer. Now, SAP may not be, for example, a household brand name, but actually, if you've ever turned on the lights, if you've ever taken a flight, if you ever ordered a parcel, each of those transactions would have touched an SAP system. In fact, 78% of the world's GDP touches SAP every single day. So a way to imagine SAP is, it is the ecosystem, technology ecosystem that runs substantial parts of the global economy. So without it operating smoothly and without continuous innovation, you are going to have major challenges on ensuring the supply, whether that's keeping the lights on, whether that's putting parcels in the hands of your customers, or indeed, delivering experiences that really matter. And so through all of these touch points, we've been able to contribute to the life of the region to making major improvements in customer experience and service delivery.
Excellent, thank you, Samar. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I'd love to open it up for questions. We've got some questions online, but before I go online to ask the gentlemen some questions, any questions from the floor, from the audience? Using technology as a solution? No? Okay. Great. Abdul Wahid, one question online, you raised some good examples of that public-private relationship, but just the question is about finding that balance between maybe big state enterprises and the startup culture. So maybe it's not your particular examples, but how should people think about the balance between bigger state-run companies, organisations, and developing that startup culture that allows these technologies to come to life and help address food security and other issues that Remo's talked about as well?
Yeah, I think to help. So you mean how they coordinate the small with the bigger?
Exactly. How do you get that balance of small and big? Because I mean, there will be startups that are created.
That's right.
And bring lots of benefits for all of us.
Yeah.
But how do we get that balance right?
I think it's important, for the startup to learn, from the bigger, organizations. However, not necessarily, they become they should not. I mean, they look at their experience, but just to learn from their success and from their failures. Okay, and at the same time, they should look at, as a startup, I believe that they should try and do some kind of some sort of partnership and alliances with the bigger companies in order, to enable them, to give them like an entry strategy, to accelerate their business. So there should be some sort of a coordination, I think, between the two sides.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's easy for me to say collaboration and partnership is important, but I think it's the how that's really important.
I think, you see, it's and one of the things, it has to come also from the top in terms of the vision.
Right.
That the vision, let's say for any country, that there's a vision that you allow those startups, you give them the opportunities, to do business, to give them the room, and to allow them to do some sort of introduce their services, and you just don't try to isolate those bigger companies, and you kill the competition. I think Mr. Khalid talked about the competition is healthy. And I think there's a lot of good ideas. And even in Bahrain, we have so many startup companies. We have, in fact, a number of them, they are in the sandbox, which is regulated by the central bank. And there are many of them graduated so far, and they are doing very well. And we have a good example as well.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's, to help them, you should have a proper legislation, regulations, and they should get help even from the top level as well.
Absolutely.
I think that's my opinion.
Thank you, Abdul Wahid. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but the takeaways for me is I've really enjoyed and appreciated the case studies that you've shared. And I think this is the benefit of these sort of events and discussions. There's a lot to learn. And I think we discussed earlier, there's still a lot of disruption to go. There'll be startups that come along that don't maybe exist right now. But it's these examples and case studies and highlights of systems and addressing needs, as Samar was talking about. There are really important needs out there, and we can use these technologies to address those issues. But please join me in thanking the gentlemen for a great conversation. Thank you very much, everyone.